No experience comes close to the pain a parent feels when they lose their child. For Kyren Lacy, that moment was even more heartbreaking because his son, Kyren Lacy, wasn't just his child, but a gift in the world of sports. Following his emotional Facebook message about his son's death, everyone's been digging deeper to know what triggered Kyren's apparent suicide. We've done our own digging, and what we found will shock you. Let's get into it. A father's viral message and the untold story. On April 13, 2025, Kyren Lacy's Facebook post became one of those rare viral moments that transcended typical internet culture. Not because it was designed to, but because its heartbreaking sincerity resonated with millions. Just one day after losing his son, former LSU wide receiver and NFL prospect Kyren Lacy, Kyren took to social media with words that would be shared, screenshot, and reposted across every platform. Young parents, start talking to your kids at a very early age and make sure they are confident and comfortable confiding in you. Don't be cool with, "I'm all right," or "I'm good," when you know deep down something isn't right. The heartbreaking message was followed by a mental health awareness speech. In his words, mental health is real, and for the most part it's invisible. Don't ignore the signs, even if they may seem small. Our lives have changed forever, and this will never be okay. But God needed my baby more than he was needed here. Kyren concluded by saying the death of his son was the biggest pill his family had to swallow. This has to be the biggest pill our families have had to swallow, but I know the love and compassion in our families will get us through. The post hit different. In a world where perfectly curated content dominates our feeds, Kyren's unfiltered expression of grief and warning about mental health became what online communities would call a wake-up call. No fancy production, no carefully staged photo shoot, just a father's devastating loss transformed into a plea for awareness that would soon be amplified beyond anything he could have imagined. Kyren's message immediately went viral, not just on Facebook, but across platforms. It ended up on Reddit's RNFL community, where it received hundreds of upvotes and comments. News outlets from NOLA.com to UseMagazine.com amplified his words. Even international media like the Times of India and the Irish Sun picked up the story, showing how truly universal themes of parental grief and mental health concerns can transcend geographical boundaries. His words about the invisible nature of mental health challenges hit especially hard. Mental health is real, and for the most part, it's invisible. Don't ignore the signs, even if they may seem small. In a social media culture often criticized for its superficiality, this raw acknowledgement of life's darkest struggles represented what TikTokers might call rare W content, something genuinely important breaking through the endless scroll. Kyren wasn't just posting into the void. His message directly challenged the performative positivity that dominates online spaces, specifically calling out how people hide behind phrases like "I'm all right" or "I'm good" when they're actually struggling. This hit home for a generation that's grown up watching influencers present carefully curated versions of their lives while privately battling their own demons. The father's spiritual reflection that our lives have changed forever and this will never be okay, but God needed my baby more than he was needed here became a widely shared quote across social platforms, with many finding resonance in his attempt to make sense of the senseless through faith. Kyren also didn't shy away from calling out what he perceived as injustice in how his son had been treated. In statements that would be categorized as spilling tea in internet parlance, he expressed that there was never a presumption of innocence, which was exemplified by the NFL pulling his draft card over mere accusations without affording him the slightest chance to defend himself. He believed the pressure and perception likely became unbearable for his son, pointing to how quickly cancellation can occur in today's digital landscape. The response from the sports and entertainment world was immediate. Major NFL players took to their Instagram stories to share condolences and reflections. Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, who had experienced his own family tragedy with his brother's suicide, posted an emotional message that created another wave of awareness. NFL stars like Russell Wilson posted heartfelt tributes with captions like "Praying for everyone. This hurts. Too young," while Jamar Chase simply wrote "Damn Rip Lacy," the kind of direct, unfiltered grieving that resonates in online spaces. But to fully understand the power and context of Kyren Lacy's viral message, we need to go back to the beginning of this story and explore who Kyren Lacy was before his name became associated with tragedy. Who was this rising star before the algorithms of social media and news outlets transformed him into a cautionary tale and a hashtag? What led to the chain of events that would ultimately prompt a father's heartbreaking viral post? Kyren Pierre Lacy was born on December 27, 2000, a Gen Z athlete whose talent would eventually take him to the highest levels of college football. His journey wasn't an overnight success story, but rather a grind that sports TikTok accounts would typically celebrate. He began at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, where he played for the Reagan Cajuns from 2020 to 2021, showing early signs of the talent talent that would later flourish. His transfer to Louisiana State University in 2022 represented that pivotal level-up moment that content creators love to document. At LSU, playing for one of college football's most prestigious programs, Lacy truly found his rhythm. The 2024 season became his breakthrough moment as he recorded 58 catches for 866 yards and 9 touchdowns, leading LSU in receiving touchdowns and establishing himself as what sports commentators would call a problem for opposing defenses. With highlight reels circulating on sports accounts and his name generating increasing buzz, Lacy made the decision that many college players dream of. On December 19, 2024, he declared for the 2025 NFL Draft. It was the kind of announcement that typically generates celebratory fire emojis across a player's mentions, with fans and teammates hyping up their potential at the next level. But just 2 days before this career-defining announcement, on December 17, 2024, an incident occurred that would dramatically alter Lacy's trajectory, the kind of incident that social media would later dissect, debate, and ultimately use to define him in ways that his athletic achievements never could. That day on Louisiana Highway 20 would become the first domino in a tragic sequence of events that no algorithm could have predicted: the controversy and the downward spiral. 2 days before Kyren Lacy would announce his NFL draft intentions to his followers and supporters, he made a decision that would dramatically shift his entire storyline. On December 17, 2024, while driving a 2023 Dodge Charger southbound on Louisiana Highway 20 near Perez Lane in Lafourche Parish, Lacy committed what would become the most fateful error of his young life. According to detailed reports from the Louisiana State Police, Lacy engaged in what might be called main character behavior, in the worst possible context, driving recklessly by attempting to pass multiple vehicles at high speed by crossing the center line and entering the northbound lane in a designated no passing zone. What happened next unfolded with the kind of devastating speed that no reaction video could ever adequately capture. A northbound pickup truck had to brake suddenly and swerve right to avoid a head-on collision with Lacy's vehicle. Meanwhile, a 2017 Kia Cadenza swerved left, crossing the center line and colliding head-on with a southbound 2017 Kia Sorento. The human toll was immediate and severe. The passenger in the Kia Sorento, 78-year-old Herman Hall of Thibodaux, Louisiana, was rushed to the hospital with serious injuries. Despite medical intervention, Hall succumbed to his injuries, turning what began as reckless driving into a fatal tragedy. In language that Gen Z would understand, Lacy ghosted the scene. According to police reports, rather than stopping to help or call emergency services, he drove around the crash site and continued south on LA Highway 20. This decision to flee, what legal documents would call hit and run, would have serious consequences beyond anything a cancel culture mob could orchestrate. The Louisiana State Police launched an investigation, reconstructing events and gathering evidence. On January 9, 2025, authorities issued an arrest warrant for Kyren Lacy with multiple serious charges: negligent homicide, LARS 1432, felony hit and run, LARS 14100, and reckless operation of a vehicle, LARS 1499. 3 days later, on January 12, 2025, Lacy turned himself in and was booked into the Lafourche Parish Correctional Complex. According to ESPN and WBRZ, he spent less than 2 hours in custody before being released after posting a $151,000 bond, the kind of bail amount that would typically generate Twitter debates about privilege and the justice system. In the court of public opinion, which increasingly plays out across platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, Lacy's story was quickly becoming what online commentators would call problematic. Here was a rising star athlete on the verge of NFL success, now facing serious charges related to a fatal accident. His agent, Rocky Arsenault, attempted the kind of damage control that has become standard in celebrity PR crises, stating that Lacy was fully cooperating with authorities. This narrative of accountability was crucial, especially as screenshots of news articles about the accident began circulating across social media platforms. The timing couldn't have been worse for Lacy's personal brand. Having just declared for the NFL draft weeks earlier, he now faced not only legal jeopardy, but also the harsh judgment of sports Twitter and draft analysts who would evaluate his character concerns alongside his 40-yard dash time. As the legal process unfolded, Lacy's attorney, Matthew Ory, worked to present an alternative narrative, what social media might call the other side of the story. On February 2, 2025, Ory made public statements claiming Lacy had not caused the collision and expressing confidence that further investigation would lead to drop charges. This defense strategy represented an attempt to counter the prevailing narratives that were already solidifying across sports media and fan discussions. Despite the cloud over his future, Lacy participated in LSU's Pro Day in late March 2025, a key event for NFL scouts. His presence there was notable since he hadn't been invited to the NFL scouting combine, the kind of exclusion that sports social media typically debates extensively. This participation demonstrated his continued hope for an NFL career, even as his legal troubles trended periodically on sports Twitter. As the date of the grand jury hearing approached in April 2025, the pressure on Lacy intensified to levels that many young celebrities and influencers have described as overwhelming. The potential consequences weren't just trending topics or ratioed posts, they included substantial prison time if convicted. Simultaneously, his professional future hung in the balance, with NFL teams evaluating not just his athletic abilities, but how he was handling what TikTokers might call the biggest L of his life. The weight of Lacy's legal troubles reached crushing proportions as April 2025 arrived. The grand jury hearing, scheduled for Monday, April 14, 2025, loomed like the ultimate Judgment Day stream, with his entire future at stake. A conviction could result in significant prison time, effectively making his NFL aspirations nothing more than unrealized TikTok manifestation content. His attorney had been mounting what online forums would call a defense different defense, claiming Lacy wasn't responsible for causing the collision. Whether this strategy would have succeeded will forever remain an unanswered question, filed alongside countless what-if scenarios that fans would debate in YouTube comments for years to come. Beyond legal consequences, Lacy faced the harsh reality of how his situation affected his professional prospects. As his father later noted, there was never a presumption of innocence, which was exemplified by the NFL pulling his draft card over mere accusations without affording him the slightest chance to defend himself. In the terminology of online culture, Lacy had been canceled before even getting his day in court. On the evening of April 13, 2025, just one day before his scheduled grand jury hearing, the final chapter of Kyren Lacy's story began to unfold in Houston, Texas. According to detailed reports from WBRZ and WWL-TV, police responded to reports of a weapons disturbance around 11:15 p.m. with allegations that Lacy had discharged a firearm into the ground following an argument with a family member. When officers arrived and spotted Lacy, he fled, initiating a police chase that stretched for several miles, the kind of high-stakes situation that would typically generate breaking news alerts and live streaming coverage. The pursuit ended when Lacy's vehicle crashed, and as officers approached, they discovered he had suffered a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Emergency medical services pronounced him deceased at the scene. The news spread across social media with the kind of viral speed reserved for the most shocking celebrity developments. What had been a legal story about a promising athlete facing charges suddenly transformed into a tragedy about mental health pressure and a young life lost. The algorithm that had been feeding people content about Lacy's legal troubles now served them news of his death, creating the kind of whiplash that exemplifies modern digital media consumption. LSU's athletics department quickly released a statement shared across their social platforms. "We're saddened to learn of the tragic passing of former LSU football student athlete Kyren Lacy. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and loved ones, as well as his former teammates and coaches impacted by his passing." The official LSU football account posted a tribute on social media stating, "The LSU football family mourns the loss of Kyren Lacy," the kind of simple but powerful message that would be shared and reposted thousands of times across platforms. What followed was the digital equivalent of a collective vigil, as teammates, NFL players, and fans shared tributes across social media platforms. In the parlance of online culture, they were showing up for Lacy and his family in the only way the digital age allows, through posts, stories, and shared memories that would trend briefly before the algorithm moved on to the next topic. But before the internet's attention inevitably shifted, Kenny Lacy ensured his son's death would not be in vain. His viral message about mental health awareness, which we explored at the beginning of the story, would transcend the typical news cycle to become something more lasting, a warning, a plea, and ultimately a legacy that would live beyond his son's tragic end. The viral impact and a lasting legacy. The real-time reaction to Kyren Lacy's death across social media platforms created what internet culture would call a moment, a brief but intense period when a single topic dominates the collective conversation. But unlike most viral moments that quickly fade as algorithms push new content to our feeds, the tragedy of Kyren Lacy and his father's emotional message sparked discussions that refused to disappear with the next trending topic. Jaden Daniels, a former LSU teammate who had moved on to the Washington Commanders, shared what TikTokers would describe as an unfiltered Instagram tribute. He recalled their friendship and a memorable touchdown pass they had connected on, concluding with words that hit the comment section hard. "Till next time, brudda, we gonna hold it down for you. You gonna live your dreams. Hope you at peace now." Amik Robertson, a cornerback for the Detroit Lions and fellow Thibodaux, Louisiana native, posted screenshots of his final text exchanges with Lacy. These messages quickly went viral, offering followers what social media culture values highly: an authentic behind-the-scenes glimpse into a relationship cut tragically short, the kind of raw content that no designer filter could enhance or diminish. The big names of the NFL didn't just drop an obligatory RIP in their stories. Stars like Odell Beckham Jr., Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, and Jamar Chase all expressed genuine sorrow through their platforms. Wilson's post was giving heartbreak energy with its simplicity, praying for everyone, this hurts, too young. Chase's equally brief "Damn Rip Lacy" represented the kind of authentic reaction that resonates in a world of curated content. On April 15, 2025, LSU coach Brian Kelly addressed Lacy's death during a media session that would be clipped and shared across sports accounts. His comments balanced the complexity of Lacy's character with genuine appreciation. Kyren was a bright star. He had an incredible personality. I'll remember him as somebody that had a love for the game, a love for being a Tiger, and was a guy that played with great emotion. But it was Kelly's acknowledgement of the mental health aspect that truly aligned with the conversation Kenny Lacy had started. Mental health is one of the facets of player development that you're working with in my field, and unfortunately it's happened before. This recognition from a major college coach gave additional credibility to discussions about the invisible pressures athletes face, discussions that were already trending across platforms. Even mainstream media, often criticized by younger audiences for missing nuance in digital culture, recognized the importance of this mental health conversation. Some outlets, like the Mirror US, took the additional step of providing resources for those experiencing similar struggles, including contact information for the National Prevention Lifeline, the kind of responsible content sharing that occasionally breaks through the engagement-driven algorithm. The story spread globally, with international outlets like the Times of India reporting on the NFL world mourning Kyren Lacy and the Irish Sun covering his death. The Guardian in the UK reported both his death and the legal issues he had been facing. While these outlets primarily amplified US-based responses rather than offering international perspectives, their coverage demonstrated that Lacy's story had gone what social media would call global viral. Threads across Twitter, Reddit, and other platforms began analyzing the complexities of Lacy's situation, the kind of nuanced discussions that occasionally emerge from tragedy. Users debated the intersection of accountability, mental health, and the intense pressure faced by young athletes in the spotlight. What began as breaking news had evolved into something deeper, a case study in how quickly life can unravel and how mental health challenges can remain hidden even from those closest to us. Kenny Lacy's viral post about mental health became what content creators would call essential viewing, something that cut through the noise with genuine importance. His specific call to parents not to accept superficial reassurances like "I'm all right" or "I'm good" when deeper issues might be present resonated particularly with younger audiences who recognize the performative positivity that often dominates social platforms. His warning about mental health being invisible and his urge to "don't ignore the signs, even if they may seem small," became widely quoted across platforms. In a digital landscape where mental health discussions alternate between genuine awareness and performative virtue signaling, Kenny's raw grief and urgent message stood out as unquestionably authentic. The story of Kyren Lacy offers what TikTok commentators might call multiple layers. It begins with a talented athlete making a terrible mistake, driving recklessly and fleeing the scene of a fatal accident. This led to serious charges and the potential end of his NFL dreams. The pressure apparently became too much to bear, resulting in his death. And finally, his father transformed personal tragedy into a viral message about mental health awareness that continues to resonate. This complexity defies the binary thinking that often dominates social media discussions. Lacy was neither entirely villain nor victim. He made a decision that resulted in Herman Hall's death, and he must be held accountable for that. Yet, he was also a young man facing enormous pressure whose mental health struggles led to his own tragic end. Online culture, which typically thrives on clear-cut heroes and villains, sometimes struggles with stories like this that demand nuance and reflection. The ongoing conversation sparked by Kyren Lacy's death and his father's viral message demonstrates what mental health advocates have long argued, that these discussions need to happen more openly, more frequently, and with less stigma. Kenny Lacy's post, shared at his moment of deepest grief, has contributed to this dialogue in ways that carefully planned awareness campaigns sometimes fail to achieve. In the end, the story of Kyren Lacy is what content creators would call a cautionary tale, but one with multiple lessons. It warns about the potential consequences of reckless decisions. It highlights how quickly public perception can shift from celebration to condemnation. It reminds us of the invisible mental health struggles that many face, even those who appear successful on the surface. And most importantly, through Kenny Lacy's viral message, it emphasizes the critical importance of open communication and early intervention when it comes to mental health. As this story continues to be shared, commented on, and remembered across platforms, perhaps its most important legacy will be the lives saved through increased mental health awareness. In a digital culture, often criticized for its short attention span, some messages manage to transcend the temporary nature of trending topics. Kenny Lacy's heartfelt plea for mental health awareness, born from unimaginable personal tragedy, appears to be one of those rare messages that will endure beyond the algorithm's typical life cycle. A father's grief transformed into a warning that may well prevent other families from experiencing similar pain. In Kenny Lacy's own words, "This has to be the biggest pill our families have had to swallow, but I know the love and compassion in our families will get us through." His strength in sharing such vulnerability during his darkest moment represents what online culture occasionally, in its best moments, can amplify: authentic human experiences that connect us all, reminding us of our shared humanity beyond the screens that so often divide us. Unfortunately, his case is not unique. The world of American football has been rocked by the tragic stories of players who have struggled with mental health issues, ultimately taking their own lives. One such player was Junior Seau, a Hall of Fame linebacker who played for 20 seasons in the NFL. Seau's life was marked by incredible achievements on the field, but behind the scenes he was battling chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, and depression. In 2012, Seau's struggles became too much to bear, and he took his own life. Another player who faced similar struggles was Aaron Hernandez, a former tight end who played for the New England Patriots. Hernandez's life was cut short when he took his own life in 2017 while serving a life sentence for murder. His struggles with depression and CTE were well documented, and his tragic death served as a wake-up call for the NFL to prioritize player mental health. The cases of Seau and Hernandez are just two examples of the many players who have struggled with mental health issues. The physical toll of playing in the NFL can be immense, and the pressure to perform can be overwhelming. When players retire, they often face significant lifestyle changes, which can lead to feelings of loss and disorientation. In recent years, the NFL has taken steps to address these issues, including providing access to mental health professionals and promoting education and awareness about mental health. However, there is still much work to be done to support players both on and off the field. Thanks for watching. Check out the other cards on the screen.